Activists dedicate their lives to fighting for a better world. With some of the highest rates of gender-based violence globally, South Africa needs activists like Mandisa Khanyile to agitate for an end to the war on women's bodies. We're all painfully aware of gender-based violence in the country, the fact that one woman gets killed every 3 hours. But there are incredible people out there who are screaming and shouting at politicians and businessmen to do something about it, to put a stop to it. Mandisa, how satisfying is it to be an activist in this area?
I wouldn't call it satisfying. I would definitely say it's work that's necessary. And why I say I wouldn't call it satisfying is that you see the survivors of violence every day. You see the people that had to watch or bury their kids due to this femicide. So it isn't an easy, how can I put it? It's not an easy experience to go through. Yeah, it's not easy work, but there is some progress currently. There's quite a lot of progress, especially in this government space and the conversations. You really are starting to see them put gender-based violence on the national agenda.
How do you deal with the trauma yourself? How do you put it in a comfortable place?
It's not. It's not easy. Look, we obviously go for counseling ourselves as well, because you can't really assist someone from an empty cup, as they say. You need to have your own cup full. And you do see a lot of really traumatic things. But yeah, you go to counseling. You also speak to other people in the space. We have really great communities of young black feminists that come together and create healing spaces for themselves.
A hectic career choice. Why?
Let me tell you how I got into this in the first place. So when we started the total shutdown movement and women started coming forward with their stories and started seeking help, I actively started saying, okay, well, we actually do have access to these services. We do belong to collectives where there is direct support happening. Why don't we actually start offering that service? And so this is how that began. And then at the beginning of this year, we decided that we're actually going to use the NPO that we registered just as a banking vehicle as a services NPO. And so what we do right now is that we work with specific groups, adolescent girls and women on the street. I know it's like, how did you marry those two together? But we did, because specifically women on the street are extremely vulnerable to violence. They're exposed at all times. I mean, just going to the toilet is a decision whether or not you want to get raped or not. And I mean, that's really traumatic. So they're incredibly vulnerable. And obviously other drivers such as addiction, etc., put them in those positions. They don't have access to rehabilitation centers, etc., which makes them more vulnerable to violence. So we work with those and also work with teenage girls, specifically discussing consent, understanding consent, what does a healthy relationship look like, what are the early signs of violent behavior, so that when they pick these things up early, they don't actually need to be part of the cycle.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're not feeding them into the chain, as we'd call it.
Can people get in touch with you if they need something? I mean, how does it work in your world?
Well, look, currently they can get in touch with us. People inbox us on a daily basis with their queries, especially with, I mean, our name is quite self-explanatory, Rise Up Against Gender-Based Violence. So whenever people...
Well done you. Make it clear.
It's pretty clear. So what they do is that they normally inbox us on our social media pages, and they're like, this is my issue, I need you to help me get access to a shelter facility, or I need you to help me, you know, with this particular problem. I can't, police are not actually implementing my protection order properly. So these type of things where either they need us to advocate on their behalf, because we do a lot of advocacy work, or alternatively they're just seeking services or a reference to services. Because for some odd reason we don't actually have that information readily available. Right now, if you were abused, would you know where to go? No. Most people don't. They don't know what to do once they get to the police station. They don't have access to their Tutuzela care centers. They don't even know where those Tutuzela care centers are. They don't know where to get rape kits, etc. So that kind of information needs to be more readily available, and we make that available to people that do approach us.
It's amazing how from a low level that we've got to start. So you were telling me a little earlier that people sometimes get angry that as an activist particularly, you can make money.
I wouldn't call it making money.
Well, cover your, just even charge.
You can cover your expenses.
Yes.
Okay. So look, there is work in the activist space. Obviously, there are non-profit entities that exist, and they are salaried people who work there. I'm a fundraising director currently at my organization. So what I do specifically is that I raise funds for our program. So I approach private sector, I approach donors, etc. We do crowdfunding as well. Most of our projects have actually been crowdfunded, strangely enough. And that's what I do. And that work is paid work. I do get paid to do that work, but it isn't. And there is a controversy around the space that activists should always be unpaid. It takes away from the purity of what you're doing. And you're like, yeah, but this is full time work.
Eat,
We kind of need to eat, and it's full time work, and people don't realize how full time it is. They think it's something cute that you can do on the weekends, like done your part. No, putting off these programs is a day-to-day thing. I don't have weekends most of the time because I'm on projects.
If you had advice for somebody who wanted to get into your world, what would it be?
Think about it long and hard. Think about it long and hard.
Because we need you.
No, we do need people, but we need people with a passion for this work. Because as I said, it is 24/7, 365. You really can't enter the space if you're doing it for the salary.
No.
Honestly speaking, you'll burn out in 5 minutes. Because your passion needs to be what pushes you through those hard days.
Yeah.
When you have 7 survivors who have come to you and said, we're all raped this weekend.
Oof.
And you need to be able to handle those kind of situations. And you need to be the strong one in those situations. And you can't do this work if you don't have a passion for it.